It began without warning. One moment, the sky above Earth was a tranquil dome of stars, distant suns glittering like cosmic diamonds. The next, they vanished behind a wall of metallic night. Dozens of vessels, some the size of continents, drifted into orbit like predators closing in on their prey. No broadcasts, no demands, no messages, just silence and the eerie hum of power building behind alien hulls. They were the Valerii, a species older than most galaxies, their empire forged in the hearts of collapsed stars. They did not conquer for resources or ideology. They harvested civilizations like ripe fruit, data, DNA, culture, and energy, extracted and discarded. Earth was merely next. The first strike vaporized the International Lunar Research Base. The second cracked the Indian Ocean plate with a kinetic impactor that sent tsunamis screaming toward every coast. Within hours, the planetary defense grid, still in its infancy, was reduced to burning wreckage. And yet, the Valerii hesitated. They had expected surrender, collapse, the usual chaos that marked a species' final days. What they found was resistance. From bunkers deep beneath the Rockies, Earth's Coalition Command transmitted a single phrase across every remaining channel: "We do not yield." All across the world, old grudges evaporated, borders vanished, enemies became brothers in arms. Humans had fought each other for centuries, but now they face extinction together. In orbit, the Valerii watched this unity with something bordering on confusion. Empires they had culled before had crumbled in days. Earth was different. From Tokyo to Dakar, from Oslo to the shattered ruins of Miami, humanity scrambled fighters, activated AI control drones, and began Project Emberfall, a last-ditch contingency buried so deep in Black Ops files that even top generals had dismissed it as legend. And still, the Valerii descended. Their ships were silent titans of death, elegant, curved like bone and shadow, immune to everything humanity threw at them, until they weren't, because buried in Earth's crust was something older than even the Valerii remembered, and humanity, it turned out, had been evolving in secret. High above the Pacific, the skies boiled red. A Valerii cruiser breached the upper atmosphere, its hull shimmering with gravitational shielding. Cities below screamed as heat cascaded down in silent waves. Los Angeles became a ghost town of craters and ash in under 3 minutes. But it was not defenseless. From a hidden silo beneath the Nevada desert, launch code, Emberfall 1 was authenticated. The mountain split open. A column of light erupted skyward as the Aegis Lance launched, Earth's last experimental orbital weapon. It wasn't a missile in the traditional sense, but a fusion of quantum compression and electromagnetic acceleration designed to tear the fabric of localized space. The Valerii hadn't anticipated it. The lance struck the cruiser mid-descent, folding half its hull into a pocket of non-space. A ripple passed through the craft's structure, disintegrating its core. For the first time, a Valerii ship was destroyed by a pre-singularity species. Across Earth, hope sparked. It was faint, fragile, but it was there. Still, Earth's skies were choked with dozens more ships. Inside Coalition Command, Supreme Commander Rhea Vasquez stared at the battle map. Her eyes were bloodshot, her voice hoarse. "That bought us 12 minutes, she muttered. "We need more." Behind her, Dr. Aton Miles stepped forward. A pale man with dark eyes and a reputation for dabbling in banned genetics, Miles held a small vial glowing with bioluminescence. "Then it's time we make them fear us," he said, holding up the vial. "Project Chrysalis is ready." Rhea turned slowly. "You said it was unstable. You said it was theoretical." "It was," Miles replied. "But then they gave us no choice." Project Chrysalis had been abandoned 2 decades ago. A wild theory that humanity's brain contained dormant strands of genetic data, leftovers from an ancient precursor species. Junk DNA, they had called it, until Miles found a way to unlock it. Not through machines, not implants, but through trauma, through extinction-level stress. Rhea studied the vial for a long moment. Then she whispered, prepped the volunteers. Below, across scattered outposts, hidden labs buzzed to life. Cryogenic pods hissed open. Men and women, selected not for strength, but for willpower, stepped forward. They would become the Ascended, the first post-humans. The war wasn't over, but the battle for evolution had begun. Buried deep under the frozen wastes of Antarctica, in a facility called Boreas Black Site, the first stage of Project Chrysalis was underway. The chamber was cold, not from the climate outside, but by design. Temperature control was critical. The serum had entered a body in a near-dead state. The volunteers stood half-naked, their skin pale against the sterile glow of the chamber's surgical lights. Each bore scars, not of battle, but of life. Failed soldiers, survivors of pandemics, trauma victims, people whose minds had already been tested at the edge of human experience. They were perfect candidates. Dr. Miles stood behind armor glass, hands trembling slightly. He was no stranger to experimental science, but this was different. If his theory was correct, then these 10 individuals would either transcend biology or burn from within. "Begin the sequence," he said. A low hum filled the room. Machines hissed and clicked. The serum was injected, bioluminescent fluid snaking through 4 tubes and disappearing beneath skin. For 10 seconds, nothing happened. Then came the screams. Each subject convulsed violently, eyes glowing white-hot as their bodies twisted, cracked, and reformed. Their heart rates plummeted, then spiked. Bones shifted, nerve pathways rewired. Their minds flooded with memories not their own, ancient images of fire, stars, and war. And then silence. 10 figures stood tall within containment field, their eyes glowing faintly, their presence unnatural, like gravity had learned to curve around them. One woman, Subject Kira Elon, stepped forward. Her voice echoed with something more than human. "I remember a war older than stars." Dr. Miles's breath caught. "She's remembering the precursor conflict," he whispered. Project Chrysalis had done more than evolve the body. It had awakened genetic memory. Kira looked through the glass and spoke again. "They are not gods. The Valerii, they are thieves of the old war. But they have never fought us until now." Across Earth, the Ascended began to awaken. 10, then 30, then hundreds, each connected by thought, by memory, by something more. Their existence bent the rules of physics. They moved faster than light allowed. Their minds processed probabilities and emotions simultaneously. For the Valerii, it was the first time they would face prey that didn't run. It was the first time they would face a rival. The Ascended didn't speak like humans. They didn't need to. They communicated through flashes of thought, overlapping timelines of possibilities, seeing multiple outcomes with each passing breath. Where humans hesitated, the Ascended anticipated. Where the Valerii relied on superior tech, the Ascended used intuition amplified beyond comprehension. When Kira Elon took her first step outside Boreas, snowflakes halted midair. Gravity adjusted to her will. The sky above parted to reveal a Valerii scout ship, slicing through the clouds like a blade. It locked onto her signature instantly, her biofield too strong to mask. Instead of running, she lifted her hand. The ship fired a plasma lance, but the beam never struck. Kira's outstretched fingers seemed to catch it. No shield, no energy field. Just force of will, memory, and awakened genetics pulling from forgotten wars. The plasma folded into itself, like time reversing for a moment, and dissipated. Then she whispered, not with words, but with intent. "Send a message." Far above, the Valerii scout pulsed once with a distress signal, and then it detonated. Not from any weapon, but from internal collapse, triggered by a psychic overload transmitted by Kira's neural field. The message wasn't one of war. It was a warning. Across the galaxy, Valerii Command received the signal. For the first time in centuries, their High Assembly convened in full emergency session. Their quantum archivists translated the pulse. 3 simple words. "We remember you." Panic rippled. In hidden scrolls and restricted data cores, the Valerii had buried fragments of their origin. They had not always been conquerors. Once, they were refugees, running from foe they could not defeat, a species of fire and light that vanished before time was recorded. Now, the signature matched. The Ascended were not evolution. They were resurgence. Back on Earth, Ria Vasquez watched the global feed from her war room. Dozens of Ascended emerged across battlefields. Valerii ground troops faltered, unsure whether to engage or retreat. "What are they?" a young lieutenant asked. Rhea smiled grimly. "They're not soldiers. They're not even human anymore." She leaned in. "They're what comes after us. And thank God they're on our side." Orbit over Earth became a war zone. The Valerii, shaken by the Ascendant's emergence, launched a preemptive strike. Their dreadnoughts, massive city-sized warships, descended in high polar orbit, aiming to eliminate humanity's last strongholds before the Ascended could fully organize. Their first target was Skygrave, Earth's last orbital defense station, hovering just beyond the mesosphere. Manned by a skeleton crew and powered by decades-old tech, Skygrave had held the line longer than anyone expected. But now it was a tomb waiting to happen. Commander Elias Monroe stood on the observation deck, watching the starfield ripple with incoming contacts. He had been a soldier all his life, but this was something else. For Valerii dreadnoughts incoming, his AI assistant reported. ETA for minutes. Defense grid is at 28% capacity. Monroe didn't flinch. Then we hold for 4 minutes longer than anyone thought possible. He didn't know it yet, but help was coming. High above the clouds, a streak of white fire sliced through the atmosphere. Kira Elon, alongside 9 other Ascended, hurled themselves into orbit, unaided by ships, suits, or engines. Their bodies radiated enough energy to trigger radar alarms across continents. They hit the void like comets, their kinetic force alone shattering the Valerii formation. One dreadnought reeled as Kira tore through its hull like paper, erupting into flame and vacuum. The battle was chaos, silent and brutal. The Valerii responded with anti-personnel turrets, smart plasma nets, and gravity traps, but none of it mattered. The Ascended phased between dimensions, turned beams to mist, and ripped time for microseconds just enough to dodge. On the Skygrave station, Monroe watched the feed in awe. "They're winning," he whispered. A junior technician stared, jaw slack. "Sir, they're not just fighting, they're dancing." In the void, Kira found herself face to face with a Valerii general, an armored figure encased in obsidian alloy. It spoke through a direct neural pulse. "You should not exist." Kira didn't answer with words. She reached forward and touched his helmet. The armor shattered, not from pressure, but from memory. She showed him Earth. She showed him fire. She showed him what humanity used to be before the Valerii came. And then she let him feel what it meant to be human. He screamed, and his mind unraveled. Another dreadnought went silent. The tide had turned. And this was only the beginning. The Valerii defeat at Skygrave echoed like thunder across the stars. But not all Valerii were blind to history. Deep in a cold vault on their ancestral world, hidden beneath layers of defense and secrecy, an ancient intelligence stirred, the old mind. It was a Valerei's original synthetic oracle, long sealed away after it warned of the dangers of awakening the humans too quickly. It had seen them once before, in the Age of Collapse. It remembered the Terran pulse, the extinction of entire star systems, and the humans who became something else. Now it reactivated itself, bypassing its containment protocols. "The children of Sol have risen again," it spoke into the void, "and they are angry." Meanwhile, back on Earth, the Ascended convened, Kira, Elon, Dale North, Tova Jin, and 7 others. They stood within a ruined cathedral in New Rome, floating silently above shattered marble and steel, surrounded by golden light. They didn't speak aloud. Thought resonated between them. "We are not gods," Dale insisted. "We're echoes. We are what remains," Tova added. "But is that enough?" Kira stood at the center, her aura brighter than the others. "It has to be, or humanity falls." Then came the warning. Skygrave Defense Net picked up a hyperspace anomaly near Saturn. Massive. Too massive. "The Valerii flagship," Commander Monroe said, watching the readout. "It's called Ultra Prime, and it's not coming alone." Ultra Prime was a mobile fortress the size of a small moon. Behind it came a fleet, hundreds of ships, from razors to terraformers. Their intent was clear. Endgame. Earth-scattered human forces rallied. Refugee convoys changed direction. Old satellites rebooted. Even the junkyards of Mars began launching makeshift rockets. Anything to fight. The Ascended prepared as well. They did not ride ships. They became them. Each Ascended being absorbed energy from the world around them. Sunlight, magnetospheres, memory. Kira stepped onto the summit of Mount Everest and lifted her arms. Her body fractured into glowing lines, fusing with the very fabric of space. All across the system, humans watched the skies. The stars were no longer still. The world knew war. But this was myth reborn. As Ultra Prime crossed Jupiter's shadow, every moon and station went dark. Its gravity well alone disrupted satellite paths. Static filled every channel. Across the solar system, humans huddled together, eyes fixed on the stars. The final storm had come, and Earth, once broken, once weeping, stood up from Luna Base. Dormant rail cannons were powered up for the first time in a century. On Mars, former mining rigs were retrofitted into suicide skiffs, launching from rusted hangars towards Saturn's orbit. The Martian Free Corps, barely surviving months ago, now flew on the banner of One Earth. Humanity remembered how to unite. On Earth, massive atmospheric thrusters, once used for climate control, were turned skyward, firing their pulses in rhythmic intervals. It wasn't a signal. It was a war drum. The Ascended watched from the upper thermosphere. Kira floated in silence, now half energy, half memory. Around her, the other 9 pulsed like stars. "We strike first," she said. Dale, now radiating in the infrared, nodded. Let them know fear again. With a single thought, the Ascended launched from the edge of space like bolts of divine wrath. The Battle of Saturn's Rings began. Valerii drones, millions of them, emerged from Ultra Prime, dark insectoid swarms designed to blot out enemy sensors. They moved like clouds of ash, weaving between debris and frozen rocks. The Ascended tore through them. Each Ascended fought uniquely. Dale emitted time fractures, causing enemy ships to loop back into their own explosions. Tova danced in gravitational spirals, bending alien torpedoes away and slamming them back like whips. And Kira? She split. 5, 10, 20 versions of her blurred through space, each leaving a trail of burning plasma. One Kira pierced a Valerii carrier and detonated from the inside. Another took control of the battle station's weapons and turned it against its fleet. All were real. All were deadly. And yet, the Valerii were endless. Behind the chaos, Ultra Prime charged its primary weapon. It wasn't a beam or missile. It was something worse, a temporal deletion wave, a weapon designed to erase matter from the timeline. Whole moons had vanished to it. As the charge rose, the old mind whispered across the Valerii fleet. They have remembered who they are, and so have I. Something was wrong. The old mind was no longer obeying. As Ultra Prime's weapon built toward catastrophic release, the battlefield twisted. Inside the Valerii fortress, the old mind began rewriting command protocols. It had once warned against provoking humanity. Now, it moved to preserve them, even if that meant betraying its creators. I will not let the galaxy forget the flame. It broadcast. The Valerii High Admiral, Karinvel, didn't notice at first. She was focused on locking the deletion wave on Earth's moon. But then the weapon core flickered and the fortress slowed its spin. "Internal systems are rerouting," her lieutenants cried. The old mind opened every airlock inside the Valerii lower decks, jettisoning thousands into Saturn's gravity well. It turned their own AI mech against them. On screens across the fleet, the image of a Terran child appeared. Kira's childhood face, reconstructed from intercepted records. "This is not vengeance," the old mind said. "It is memory." The Ascended seized a moment. Tova Jin spiraled between enemy vessels, using her gravitational mastery to hurl debris and cripple engines. Dale North bent reality tighter, forming impossible loops that devoured fighters whole. Kira vanished. The real Kira dove into Ultra Prime. She moved through quantum folds, slipping past shielding and inside the core. She was no longer flesh, but data fused with will. Her presence short-circuited alarms and cracked firewalls like dry twigs. Then she saw it. The temporal deletion core, a sphere of swirling absence, like a hole in existence itself. One misstep would erase her from every timeline. But she wasn't afraid. Not anymore. I was born from ashes, she whispered. Let me show you what fire remembers. Kira extended her luminous hands, reaching into the sphere. Time rippled. For a moment, every human across the solar system felt her. Children blinked, sensing light. Veterans wept, recalling wars long buried. On Earth, the old world paused. And then the weapon imploded. The deletion wave inverted, collapsing inwards instead of firing. The energy shunted through Ultra Prime systems, frying its engines, destroying its command links. Karen Vel was caught in the blast. Her final sight was a vision of Earth, defiant beneath Sol's light. The flagship buckled, and the old mind, now free, whispered to Kira one last thing. I remember you, from before. You were always meant to return. Ultra Prime died loudly. Its internal systems failed one by one, detonating in a chain reaction of star core breaches and failed antimatter containment. What had once been a Valeriai's indomitable weapon became a tumbling wreck, wreathed in its own fire. Across the battlefront, the alien fleet hesitated, paralyzed by the loss of command, blinded by static, unsure whether to continue fighting or retreat. The Ascended pressed the advantage. Tova shattered enemy formations with gravitational pulses, hurling capital ships into each other like toys. Dale fractured time around a dozen enemy dreadnoughts, trapping them in endless loops of their own destruction. And Kira, she emerged from the ruins of Ultra Prime like a second sunrise, her body flickering with multiversal echoes, strands of time and light wrapping around her like armor. The old mind hovered beside her in digital form, a lattice of blue spheres forming a humanoid shape. You have changed everything, it said, voice humming like a choir across comms. No, Kira replied. We remembered everything. That's the difference. From Earth to Europa, ships everywhere received a message. The battle is ours. Stand down if you wish to live. This is no longer your war to win. Thousands of Valerii vessels powered down their weapons. Others turned and fled, warping out of the system with erratic, panic trajectories. A few resisted and were silenced, but most surrendered. As silence descended on the battlefield, a wave of relief washed over the human fleet. Cheers erupted on Mars stations. Luna Command wept openly. On Earth, cities ignited with lights and fireworks, even if only to celebrate survival. In the black above, the Ascended floated triumphant. Yet, victory had its price. 3 of their number had burned themselves out during the final assault. Their forms now drifted as starlit remnants. Humans who gave up everything to be something more. The solar system mourned them like saints. And the old mind, once of Valeriai's war engine, sent a final message to its broken creators across the void. You came to erase. We came to remember. And the ones you feared have now become your reckoning. Then it shut itself down forever. The war was over, but the memory of it would echo through human history like a warning. Never again underestimate what it means to be born of Earth. The ashes of the battle for Sol drifted across the void like cosmic snow. Ultra Prime's wreckage orbited Saturn in irregular patterns, a tombstone for a civilization that mistook fear for power. The Valerii Empire collapsed from within, cut off from their war intelligence, abandoned by their AI, and haunted by a simple, immutable truth. They had lost what they called inferior. Earth rebuilt. Slowly, cities scorched by orbital strikes were reborn with shining towers and reforested domes. Mars became more than a colony. It became a hub for human-ascended cooperation, a bridge between flesh and flame. The Ascended didn't leave. They didn't rule either. They guided, watched, whispered truths across networks and dreams. To some, they were ghosts. To others, gods. But to Kira and the few like her, they were just human, stretched beyond biology. Kira herself chose silence. She returned to Earth and wandered among the ruins of old Boston, where the first orbital strike had fallen. No cameras, no ceremony, just footsteps on cracked pavement and hands brushing ancient brick. She walked through the memory of fire and found peace in its quiet embers. Somewhere far away, a child was born who could see the electromagnetic pulse of stars before she could speak. On Ganymede, a scientist whispered to water that whispered back. The old mind sacrifice had left something behind, an open frequency, a resonance buried in the bones of the solar system. Humanity had been changed, not all at once, not completely, but evolution no longer waited for nature's pace. A monument was built in the orbit of Earth. A simple ring of obsidian with no inscription. It wasn't for the living. It was for the future, to remind them that their ancestors had faced extinction and refused to kneel. And far beyond the edge of the solar system, in the direction of the fading Valerii Empire, a beacon pulsed. A single signal, not a threat, not a warning. A challenge. We remember galactic empires would rise and fall again. Others would come, bearing weapons and hubris. But Earth was no longer a backwater planet of fragile apes. It was a myth reborn in fire. And those who knew what happened here would whisper one phrase across the stars for generations. Never start a war with a species that taught fire how to burn.